And I love that guy so much. Because he didn't have to take me under his wing, and he did.
Mario Ramirez, everybody, a hero of mine. I love you, man. Good to see you.
Right back at you.
Doing this Heroes I Know project. Look, when Fuddy got not thinking right, man, it got me to thinking, right? And I called him up and I recorded it and I called it Heroes I Know. But these stories we're not going to be able to tell them somehow. And then recently I had a soldier that passed away who had throat cancer. And I found out about it the last minute and I couldn't even talk to him. And I was like, man, that jump started this back. So we made shirts, we got coins we're going to send you. And we're thankful that you'll let us talk to you, man. And I love you. You're a huge hero of mine, man.
Appreciate it, man. I'm just trying. I'm a Hispanic kid from a small town, you know, always wanted to play sports. I didn't understand the coach's mentality when I was growing up in high school. I was little and I was pudgy, but I was athletic. And all I wanted to do was play football with my friends. And I could play pickup games with the same football players that they played in varsity, but they said I was too small. I still had a grudge against all of those coaches. That I just didn't understand their mentality. He said I was too small. I might get hurt or whatever. I tell you what, I let them have it. I showed them at my 10th year class reunion when I showed up in my uniform with E6 and my beret and all that kind of stuff. You know, I was raised in a middle-class family. My parents made too much money for me to qualify for financial aid, but they didn't make enough money to put me through school. My stepdad was a World War II veteran. And he says, hey, let's go talk to your uncle who's a Vietnam veteran, 101st. He was in Vietnam. He got his degree through veterans benefits. So we went over there on a Saturday. On Monday, by that Monday, I was in a recruiting station. And I remember it vividly. They put me on a bus. I took the ASVAB. They put me on a bus to San Antonio. And they put us in a hotel, and the first thing I see, it was by the Riverwalk. I don't know if you're familiar with San Antonio. I open the shades, and there's this girl just going to town on this guy on the Riverwalk. I remember sitting there with the job counselor, and he goes, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I need money for college, and I want to jump out of planes. Just because the coaches didn't let me play football, I said, I want to jump out. I never flew on a plane before in my life. And that's what I did. I said, well, we got these jobs. And he showed me something. He showed me some combat engineer stuff. I don't remember what. Then he showed me these two guys on a hilltop. One had a missile on his shoulder, and the other guy was pointing in the direction that the gunner was pointing. And I said, I'll take that one. And the rest was history, you know. So I came back, finished off my senior year. About 9 days after I graduated, I was at basic training in 1984, 9 days after I graduated. I went in at about 160 something. I was 5'4". I grew 4 inches in the Army, okay? But I went in there and said, man, I need to get better at this. So I would volunteer for road guard. I took off to Fort Benning. I can't express the feeling I was of dread. You know, I was, you know, you had ground week, and then you had tower week. I was like numb. And then they opened the doors. Like a holy cow, man. That wind started gushing in there. And all I did was I wished the jumper in front of me. I said, hey, have a good jump. and I told the guy behind me, have a good jump. And I've done that my whole jump career. I always did that. Still came with freaking controversy. We ended up doing a nap of the earth. So there's people getting sick on that damn plane. So I said, man, can't we just jump? You know, there was a chaplain jump with it. He wanted door position. So he got door position, but he ended up puking, throwing up, and he jumped with a barf bag, and I jumped out right after him. And then I landed fairly well. You know, I still landed hard, but it was good to go, you know. And I got to go home with my pants tucked in my boots, in my jump boots, you know, right after jump school. And I said, you can't call me a leg now, can you, jump master? He goes, but you're a fucking cherry. That's what you are. I said, damn, okay. So, and then after jump school, I ended up in Charlie Battery, 3rd Battalion, 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, Charlie Battery. My section sergeant was Staff Sergeant Morton. He was a prior service Marine Corps guy. So he wore that Marine Corps combat patch. And my platoon sergeant, and I hold him in high regard, man. I thought he was the epitome of platoon sergeants. It was Staff Sergeant Bruce Sherrill was my platoon sergeant, and that man was tough. He was feared, and he was very demanding, you know. And I have no regrets having that guy as my platoon sergeant, because I learned a lot about leadership with him, you know. And I was I always underestimated myself, and he wouldn't have that. You know what I mean? I had guys like I don't know if you remember Rock, Pavasco, who were some of the guys that I was just trying to, you know, back then when I was growing up as a private, you know, I didn't make my E2 until I made 6 months. Well, shoot, this sucks. I want more rank, you know? So, but I got put on guard duty a lot of the time. We had guard mount. So as much time as I had guard mount, guess how many times I pulled guard? One time. The rest of the time, I was if you got the supernumerary, you would get the day of and the day after off. Okay. And one time I was walking in my civilian clothes from battalion. I had to go to battalion for back then. They had you know, I had to go do something at PAC or whatever. We had our own PAC back then, and I was walking back to the battalion, and I run across Sergeant Sherrill and said, "Hey, how the hell are you always off?" I said, "Well, I won the guard mount. I was supernumerary. I won the man." They said, "Well, you know what? You're gonna have to work. So I'm sending you to jungle school." He sent me to Panama with Sergeant Back. I don't know if you remember Sergeant Back. He was freaking awesome, man. That guy knew his stuff, especially when it came to land nav out in the damn jungle. I said, "How the hell does he do it?" You know, and I was one of the exceptional ones there, you know, and he came back and he was really happy with me, and they meritoriously promoted me to PFC. And at the time, our first sergeant was, when I got there, First Sergeant Harmon was our first sergeant. When I got back from Panama, guess who became my first sergeant?
Cuddy?
Cuddy was my first sergeant. That's it. Man, I love that guy. He, if you were at one of our battery formations and you stood behind Stinger platoon, you see high and tight, high and tight, high and tight, high and tight, taper, high and tight, high and tight. I was the only one that would have a tapered haircut. and he would beat me up about getting a damn haircut. But he stood up there one day and he said, if you go to the Soldier of the Month board and you win, I will promote you to Spec 4. I had just gotten my PFC, you know? So I went over there and it was one of the easiest things I ever did, you know, because it just came natural. And I saw all those battery first sergeants and the sergeant major were like, holy shit, you know? And that next month I was the Spec 4. And then next thing you know, I was a doggone corporal, you know. I just moved up real fast, you know, and um, one of the main things that stood out, and I remember it like it was yesterday, is when I came back from Panama, and I got promoted to PFC. And I walk in my room, and there's this guy unpacking in there. I said, "Who the hell are you?" They say, "Hey, my name's Maggot." I said, "What? Maggot?" That was the day of all days, man. And the love story began because I realized that day that I had I knew my limits, and I figured out that I didn't have any with him, and I love that guy so much. Because he didn't have to take me under his wing, and he did, and he would teach me everything that he knew. It would challenge me every day on the running, on the uniform, and most of the things that I know, I got them from him, you know. And uh, I had just left him in Oklahoma, and I had just he just up and called me one day. Hey, come up to Oklahoma, Fort Sill. Joe's here, and I went up there, and I was so happy to see Joe, you know. And David Howard he lives up there close to Fort Sill, and we spend a good weekend up there. And I come back, and I'm at HEB, and Mama calls me. Ball, I said, what's going on? What happened? And she just, you know, explained everything to me. And I'm like, oh my God. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know what he was doing there and all that kind of stuff. And I said, oh my God. And I had to go to work the next morning. And that very first weekend, as soon as the weekend came, that Friday came, I took off and I spent the weekend up there. Sergeant Hines was up there, also big, tall guy. And man, I just, he's one of the strongest men I know, you know. And uh, I just welled up a lot. I just couldn't understand. But from that day until now, he's doing a lot better, you know. He's doing a lot better, and I'm just so happy that he's doing a lot better. He's got a wonderful woman at his side. You know, I love them both dearly and everything. And you know, but I just learned and I appreciate everything that he's done for me. You know, but he was freaking on. He challenged on the SQTs. You know, quick reaction drills. You know, I was tough to beat on those quick reaction drills when we had the MTS and stuff like that. My fastest time on the quick reaction drill was 4.86 seconds was my time. Jumping out of that doggone Jeep, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Always scored 100 on my SQTs and everything too. So I spent my first 3 years there at Charlie Battery, and I re-enlisted. I thought I had enlisted for the college money and everything, and you know, the only job that I had before I joined the Army, I was a doggone sacker at HEB. I don't know if you've ever heard of those stores. I was a sacker at HEB, and I would struggle just to make. I didn't even make $100 a week, man. It was maybe $50, you know. And here I had, at that time, it was a lot of money. I was getting $600-700, and then by that, uh, I was an E5 in 2 years, man. In 2 years, I made E5. I said in 1986. I joined the Army in 1984. By 1986, I was already an E5. And here's the thing, Sergeant Morton, Cuddy, because I was moving fast, man. As soon as Rob made his E5, I made his E5 right after him. He was an awesome mentor, and uh, Cuddy wanted to send me to BNOC. Well, guess who was teaching at BNOC? My old section sergeant. And he's saying he's not ready. And I don't know the gist of the argument, because if he didn't let me in, then they wouldn't have to do the course that time, right? So Cuddy told him, it's not up to you. To me, he's one of my leaders in my battery. He's ready to go to BNOC. I need him ready. So he sent me to BNOC, and I didn't disappoint, because we went through Sergeant Magallanes was another instructor over there. You remember him, right? And one of the hardest things that we had to do was the land nav. There was 8 of us. I was the only one that passed the land nav. We had Sergeant Thompson. I remember he was an adversary at that school, tall blonde guy, and he didn't even pass it, and I was the only one that passed the land nav. And then we had a Chinook jump. Some of my favorite jumps, even though I'm terrified of heights, my favorite jumps were Chinooks and tailgates. And we did that. We had a Chinook jump, and I was the only one that landed on the DZ. Everybody else they all landed in the damn trees, man. I thought that was hilarious, and I got a lot of gusto, a lot of pride proving Sergeant Morton wrong, because he thought that I wasn't ready, and I proved him wrong, and but after that, once my Ports was my re-enlistment NCO, and he was only able to give me a 1-year stabilization, and this was in 1987. I came down on orders to go to Korea, and they sent me to Korea for a year to go stand on a damn hilltop for the 1988 Olympics.
Oh, wow.
So I was over there for the 1988 Olympics, and it was the worst year of my career. And I'm not saying that the rest of the Army doesn't have good leaders, but I had terrible leadership over there, man, and I really had a hard time. Plus, I think I lost my immune system somewhere, because once I left, I had my first kidney stone before I had the D-Rose back. And I came back. I was hospitalized. They did the surgery back here when I got home on leave, and they had to wait 10. I had to call 82nd replacement. Hey, I'm running late. I just got operated on and stuff, and I got over there 10 days later. I got the same room. I got the same platoon. I got the same section. Sergeant Leatherwood was my section sergeant, and it was he was one of my favorite section sergeants too. Man, that guy was quiet, but he was tough, man. That doggone Ranger right there. And we became really, really good friends, not just we weren't just I wasn't just his subordinate, but we were really good friends. We do stuff with his family and stuff. Got to know his son Ian. Ian joined the Army after once he was ready to, once he graduated high school, he was in the 82nd also. But he's up in Kentucky somewhere with his wife and everything. But and then we came back. I came back, and then Desert Storm came up. No, well, I I I want to say that, you remember, my immune system went down. I had to get operated again. And Bassett was my roomie back then too.
Right.
Um, I had to get a polynidal cyst removed. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a big old cyst right at the tailbone, and they cut, like, it was like 4 inches long and 2 inches deep. They couldn't sew it up. They had to clean it every day, twice a day at least. And guess who cleaned it? Matthew Bassett. He was freaking awesome, man. You know. And then it got to the point where I was on 30-day convalescent leave, and I was gonna be a pay hurt. And guess what kind of jump came up? A tailgate jump, mass tack tailgate with heavy drop. And I'd never done a tailgate out of a C-130. So I shaved my beard, got in uniform, and signed up. Hey, I'm gonna be a pay hurt. And that was one of the best jumps I ever had also, man. It was fantastic. But uh I spent 8 years in the 82nd Airborne Division, and um that's where I became a man, you know. I had, I met Joe when he came down from Bravo. Uh, and I didn't see him as an adversary. I said, I need to keep up with this guy because this guy's freaking squared away, man. I had nothing but admiration and for that guy. I said, man, he just really knows his stuff, you know. And but if I could do it all over again, oh my God, I would do it the exact same way. The only different thing that I would do is, because when we get back from Desert Storm, I always wanted to be a drill sergeant, you know. So I put in a drill sergeant packet. Well, the first time I turned in the drill sergeant packet, they sent me to Korea. The second one, they said, "Nah, you're better suited for recruiting." And you can't tell the Department of the Army no if you're a career soldier. You know what I mean? And I was a young E5. I had been an doggone E5 for uh, 4 or 5 years. And right before I left for recruiting duty, I made my E6. So in '92 is when I made my E6, and I went on recruiting duty, you know, and the I was good at it. I wasn't, but I had to get good, and I used all the skills that I learned in the 82nd from all those phenomenal leaders that I had, and I made it work, and I devised a system. And it's not that hard. The key is to talk to as many people as you can. So the more people that you talk to, the more people that you're gonna find to enlist. It's, you just throw them in the funnel, and the sad thing is, not all of them qualify. Not just anybody can join the Army. Some of them have law violations. Some of them have medical issues and stuff like that. But the only thing that I regret in my 20 years in the Army is I should have just done the 3-year tour in recruiting and come back. Because you got Lincoln. Lincoln was an E5 with me. He retired as Sergeant Major. Sanchez, I was an E5 in Desert Storm. He was an E4. He's my homeboy too. We're from the same hometown. And he retired as CSM, you know? And I'm just like, damn, you know, I could have been one of those E8s or E9s and stuff like that, you know? So that's it. Because I thought, you know, everything that I learned in the 82nd, I implemented it in recruiting. You know, in recruiting, there's a high propensity for people or soldiers to get overweight because you're always trying to make mission. You're at a desk all the time, and you know. And my thing was, I always planned PT. You know, always planned PT. It's put it in the dog. You better not get fat. I was only a recruiter 2 years. And I don't know if you're familiar with award system. You know, you start off with a silver badge, and then you get enough points, they give you a gold star, and then you get the next gold star, and then the other one, then the gold badge. I was halfway to my ring in 2 years. You know, after 2 years, I became a station commander. I ran a recruiting station. And then once I did that successfully, they made me a recruiter trainee for all this, you know, all of South Texas, you know, and it's just, I was really good at it. You know, I was a year out. I dropped my paperwork. I was 37 years old when I retired. So, uh, in the year before I retired, I was already certified to teach ROTC, and I started working while I was on terminal leave, and that was the best thing I could have. You know, I've been doing it 18 years now. I got 2 more years, and I'll retire again. And I love doing that because, you know, we're not just teaching kids, so we're building character, you know, and that's how I want to contribute to my country and to my, you know, I have numerous success stories in all the years that I've been teaching and stuff like that. You know, do all the kids like me? No, they probably don't, but I set a standard for them, and I held them accountable and stuff like that. And one of the main things that I tell my students is, and they look at me weird, and I tell them, happiness is being able to deal with adversity. That's happiness. Because if you can't, it's gonna be, you know, it'll be rough, you know. So, but I love doing it. I still wear the uniform, you know, even though I have the metabolism of a walrus. I have to, I have to. I mean, I can't run anymore like I used to, so I do a lot of walking. I have to watch what I eat. I used to smoke in the Army. I don't smoke. I don't drink. This is my beverage. This uh, or I like natural light peach tea. I drink, you know, after my walk, I'll drink a whole gallon of that because you got to drink a lot of water and stuff. So, but I love it, man. And my pastime is, you know, is golf. I love golf. I shared it with I'm a golf teaching professional, but I teach it better than I play it. Okay. Because the first school that I started teaching at, you know, I was the lowest paid instructor on the planet. And literally, okay, literally, because we have programs all over the world. So I realized, you know, and at first, when I first started teaching, you didn't need a degree to teach ROTC. You just had to be retired, honorable discharge, certified to teach and stuff like that. Then a couple of years later, hey, you have to have at least an associate. And it didn't take me that long because I already had 88 hours. So I went ahead and I got my bachelor's degree. It took me 6 or 8 months, but they were giving me a stipend every month, you know. And back then, my son, who was living with his mother, was having a hard time in school. So if you ever heard of an early college high school, this is where it started, in the first school that I had. And I told him I used golf to bond with him. You know, he liked it, you know, and you know, and he took to it like a fish in water. And he was my guinea pig, as a matter of fact, after I got my certification. And man, that kid was, he was, you know, a 3A ball. Kids win in 3A golf. Kids are winning 80s, 90s. My son was scoring in the low 70s. Okay, and he could shape shots. He could draw the ball. He could fade it, spin it. He had an excellent short game. He won district 2 years in a row. I had him in the junior PGA, all that kind of stuff, you know. And I was teaching golf on the side. I was charging $50 an hour at the local golfing range and stuff like that because I wasn't making any money here. And at the same time, I was a single dad. I was trying to get my master's degree, and I was doing it to prove it point to my son. I said, look, I'm gonna graduate with honors, okay? And I'm gonna show you. But he graduated, and I had him in a university. He was the best golfer at that university, but he fell in love with a girl. I've had 13 kidney stone surgeries. Uh, I've had my right shoulder is completely reconstructed. Um, I got bad knees. I'm at 90% right now, so it's hard on the kids. But um, if you have a good rapport with them, they'll surprise you. You know, so uh, they surprised me because it's, I'm by myself. We're supposed to have two instructors, and I'm by myself, and I had to go through a full blown inspection. Uh, and we managed we kept our gold star honor unit with distinction. I was so happy about that. Nobody thought, the guy from the other school comes out, how the F did you get a gold star? Because I didn't call him or ask him for any help or anything, man. It was awesome. So uh it's always fantastic. I love what I do. So uh but if you would have met me when I was before I joined the Army, you'd be like, what how the hell did this guy accomplish all of this stuff? You know what I mean? And I learned it from Maggot and Stout. Those all those exceptional leaders that I grew up with. Sergeant Sherrill, Sergeant Jordan, he was another great platoon sergeant. Some really great friends that always chat. Robert Watson, man, he was one of my all-time favorites. He was so awesome. He just passed away recently. Um, he would always, he had a brown Toyota Celica that he was, whenever he had CQ, I said, hey man, let me borrow your ride, man. I gotta borrow your, I gotta meet up with a young lady and say, hey, here you go. So he was always there. And he was a married man and everything, but if he had CQ, if he could lend me his car, he'd lend me his car. But he was so awesome, and I just love. He had a very distinctive laugh, and I always loved making him laugh. And we had just barely reconnected, uh, maybe uh, 6 or 7 months before he passed, and me and him and Rob would always have our group chats and everything on video, and I always looked forward to that. And he still had that awesome laugh that he had. So, um, but it was the Soldier of the Month boards. You know, um, graduating from BNOC, when people thought that I wouldn't be able to, they thought it was too soon. Uh, I tell you what, I was so happy I proved Sergeant Morton wrong. And he tried to be difficult with me over there, and that's fine, as long as he doesn't try to be an asshole about it. But he was very challenging, and I took the challenge. And a lot of my peers there, they didn't think I was gonna, but here I was the only one that landed on the DZ. I was the only one that passed the land navigation course on the first try, you know. So, but I was happy with that. I've got a lot of recruiting awards. I I was surprised at how good I was at recruiting, and uh, I've had a lot of recruiters from the 82nd that were surprised at how good I was at that, because not just everybody can be a recruiter trainer. I got selected for that for a reason, because, I knew what the heck I was talking about and stuff like that. So, uh, but, you know, I just, I was just really good at it. I spent 12 years in recruiting, and people look at me like I'm crazy or something. Hey, I was just good at it. Plus, you know, when I left jump status, I was only getting $110 extra a month. Do you know how much it was on recruiting? Recruiting was $375, brother. $375 a month proficiency pay. So I was like, you know, so I'll take it. But that was my only regret. I should have just done the recruiting tour and gone back, you know. And even that sergeant major threat, I said, hey, because I was fighting him on going to Beeville. I said, man, the guy over there tried to hang himself. You want to send me over there? You told me I was going to stay down here my last 2 years till I retire. I said, you go Beeville, or do you go back mainstream and do what, sergeant major? My job doesn't exist anymore. You know, I said, fine. So I went to prove him wrong. And he got his because it's happened after 9/11 and recruiting was suffering really, really bad, where all the battalion sergeant majors and all the battalion commanders had to go to USAREC up there, Fort Knox, Kentucky, and they had to brief the USAREC general on why they were failing. So they were putting slides of station by station. And when my battalion sergeant major had to brief his, and the USAREC sergeant major was Command Sergeant Major Blount. I have him on my LinkedIn account. And he remembers me. So does General Wheeler. He goes, hey, Beeville, why isn't that guy at Beeville 600%? Why is he not a large station commander? the S1 NCO who I was seeing, she calls me and tells me, hey, you should have seen them when they brought up your name, your slides up there. And that's all I needed, man, you know. But I was really good at it. But I really wanted to be an E8 or E9. You know, I would have, if I would have made the list, I would have probably stayed in longer. But I was just very discouraged with the politics not in the Army, but in USAREC. That guy had a direct say on who was going to make E8 and who was not going to make E8 or whatever. And I just didn't understand that. But
so let's go back to Desert Shield and Desert Storm and deploying to war and those kinds of things. Go back in your mind. Do you have memories of that?
Yeah, I remember when they said, hey, don't leave, start getting your stuff ready, you know. And I'm like, holy cow. It was kind of numbing for me, you know. And I had just come back from leave and stuff, and I feel stupid for saying this, but I don't regret my son. I had been seeing this lady that my sister introduced me to, and it was going well. I said, you know what, if I'm gonna go off to war, or, you know, we don't know how it's gonna end up. You know, all I know, you know, and my stepdad was worried too, because he's seen war. He was in World War II, and that's, you know, that's the greatest generation. That's they went through some stuff there. He got 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts. He was a combat medic, you know. You know, after we got back, I'd never seen him cry, because when I was growing, he was the chief of police. He was always chief of security and all this kind of stuff. And he was one of the strongest men that I knew. And when I got back, he was bawling. I thought you were going to die. You know, this was after we all got drunk when I got back. We went out drinking and playing pool, and I had a little bit too much, and they found me in the backyard passed out like this, and they woke me up. They carried me back in the house, and he started crying, man. I said, oh wow, I'd never seen him cry before, you know. But it was a numbing experience. Then they kept us busy. We were always busy. We took off over there, and I just remember, you know, we didn't have our vehicles there yet, so we had to walk like 4 miles, and my large Alice was weighed more than I did, you know. So, and we were walking, we had to walk 4 miles to another airfield, uh, and then we were there for a little while, and then they finally got us to a, I guess it was some kind of a compound down there in Saudi Arabia, and they had the track and field, and they had a bunch of office buildings that we turned basically into barracks. I know we were with an infantry company. I think it was they had us with the snipers and stuff like that. So I don't right. I'm thinking it's first of the 508th, but I just, you know, I have pictures of me with the snipers and stuff like that, and it wasn't that hard. I was in the best shape of my life there because we PT'd every day until D-Day. You know, I was running 2 miles in 10 minutes and 26 seconds.
Oh,
Funny
wow.
story. We had a cherry guy that came in here. I guess he was a high school varsity athlete and everything. And I was a smoker too. But I mean, I was a smoker, but I didn't smoke more than a pack a day. Okay. But he's talking trash. I said, well, let's see how you do on the PT test and stuff like this. Oh, you're old, you're an old man. I'm gonna outrun you. So I did my 100 push-ups, my 100 sit-ups, and then he took on the 2 mile run. It was just a 1 mile up and 1 mile back. And he got about a quarter mile out there. He took off like a bat out of hell. And then I passed him, took the turnaround, came back, and that was the fastest. I ran at 10:26 is what I ran. And I had my cigarettes there, so I lit up a cigarette and was waiting for him, smoking a cigarette. When I think he ran it in 13 or 14 minutes. So
No way,
that was
no way.
that was funny as hell. But then uh, you learned a lot, and you learned how to cope and how to deal with adversity. I had a phenomenal section. Sergeant Leatherwood was the section sergeant. Maggot was in my section. He's one of the team chiefs. Um, it was me. Then you had center. I remember center. Um, and another. I think there was another spec four or corporal. I forgot him. I'd have to check the pictures. But the ones that really stood out were Leatherwood and Maggot and center and stuff like that. Um, Sergeant Conklin. I love Sergeant Conklin to death. He was an awesome platoon sergeant. I loved him. He looked just like my stepdad too, man. You know, the gray hair, the nose, and everything. Uh, he looked exactly like him. You know, and I think that's why it was so easy for me when I was over there, because he was the platoon sergeant. You know, so. But it was trying. It was you know, I loved all the PT. Sergeant Locklear was the first sergeant. I used to love calling cadence. I mean, I don't think I was very good, but I loved singing it. Some of my favorites were uh, uh, the Rockin' Robin, Hey Lottie Lottie, all the soulful ones were the ones that I really liked. But I must have been doing something right, because first Sergeant Locklear said, "Hey, Ramirez, get out here. Let's go march him, start him off." I'd start him off, then I would finish him off, come back and everything. But I knew how to do all of that stuff. And I think that's why I wanted to be a drill sergeant, you know, because I was good at all that stuff and teaching and all that kind of stuff. But I think the Army saw different. You know, they rather send me to recruiting, because I went to, right after Desert, got back from Desert Storm. I came up on orders for recruiting. I couldn't say no. So, and the rest is history. But I will never ever forget my my time in the 82nd Airborne Division, because that's where those were my best years. to this day, those first 8 years were my best years. I never got hurt. Uh, did you ever, when I got there, Sergeant Leon was there, Sergeant Brydell. What year did you get there?
I got there in 87. I was in Bravo
Okay.
in 87.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I came back to Charlie in 91.
Okay. And then, cause I don't, and I don't, no disrespect, but I'm trying to remember seeing you, and you said, well, you said you remember because of Maggot, and remember me because of Maggot and Stout and stuff like that. And I was mostly busy trying to keep up with them, because to me, they were the epitome of 16 Sierras, man. Joe and Maggot and Leatherwood, and it's amazing. I have exceeded, everyone's expectations. Even all those coaches that said no to me, they were like, "Oh shit," you weren't kidding, and I owe it all. Everything that I am now, everything that I've accomplished, I've learned in those. I apply those first 8 years that I have, because that's where all the leadership was. I really, really believe that. I've had a good, station commanders. I can't think of any. First sergeants, one or two in recruiting. Battalion commanders, three. In my whole career. No, they're not. You know, it doesn't even compare. And I'm not saying that Rangers or Special Forces guys aren't up to, but that's where I went, and I am till the day that I die. I will be entirely in all those soldiers' debt, because I learned from privates all the way up to sergeant majors, man, and I'm just so grateful for that. You know, um, I'm a better person for it. I'm a better man for it. Um, it's helped me deal with all and I've gone through a lot of adversity. And I've been able to keep everything on a level keel. I've gone through, even my son, who I love with all my heart, he had disowned me for like 6 years. I have two granddaughters that I didn't meet until they were 5 and 6. you know uh but I always left that door open. Remember, I love them like nothing else, and I've got two beautiful granddaughters that I can't wait to see grow up into wonderful uh young ladies. I'm going to teach them how to play golf. Maybe that'll pay for their education too. you know um I retire in about 3 years. I'm gonna challenge Tiger Woods. I can beat him now, that, right? I can beat Tiger Woods now. He got a broken leg now. I can beat him now. Yeah. But I just love to play golf, and I love everything that it builds character, because you have to be honest, so I love the game of golf. And you can thank Bassett for that. Bassett is the one that got me into golf.
So I have spent, I kind of in my head have always called you guys the Four Horsemen.
Why
I've
is that?
I've spent significant amount of time with Bassett and Stout and Maggot, but I've never really worked really close with you. And so, but you always get that, you just always get that same esteem that I give to the rest of them, because obviously you're obviously awesome. And I regret that you and I didn't get a lot of time that we spent together. I was a Vulcan guy. So I was,
Yeah.
and I was in Bravo. And then when I came over to Charlie, I was, in and out and whatever, and that was, then in 93, in 92, I was the NCO of the year. And then 93, I went and was a jump master instructor. So
that's, that's more than I could even dream of trying to accomplish and stuff. But my enlistment was kind of weird, because I wanted to be a jump master, and Cuddy said, you're gonna go take the pre-qual. You have to, to go to jump. And I was pre-qual, and guess what they do? They freaking send me to Korea, right? So I come back, and when I come back from Korea, I think it was First Sergeant Patterson. First Sergeant Patterson was the first sergeant, and Cuddy was a sergeant major. And his first words to me, as I had just finished chow. He's walking out of the chow hall, lighting his pipe. Ramirez, and he knew. Get a fucking haircut, Ramirez. He always said, Sergeant Major, I always got that one. I just got a haircut, Sergeant Major. He said, shut up. And he starts laughing and he walks away. Because whenever he wanted somebody for the board, Ramirez, go to the board. I said, okay, Sergeant Major, but and I held him in high regard for having that much confidence in me, when I didn't think nobody else would, you know what I mean? So I try to make a name for myself, and I had a lot of competition, and I just wanted to keep up with them, and I was doing a pretty good job. And I knew when Sergeant Terrell tells you you have too much damn time off, you need to work, you're doing something, and he was happy for that because I was representing Stinger. But I had some awesome Vulcan leadership too that I looked up to. I looked up to Sergeant Rob. Man, that guy was awesome. Sergeant Ezel, man, he was one of my favorites. Sergeant Hilton, he retired as Sergeant Major Lear. I love that guy. He was so freaking awesome. Sergeant Lear, all those guys were awesome. I tried to take bits and pieces out of all of those guys because they had some phenomenal leadership, man. And I just, picked their brain. Well, how do you do this or how do you do that? And, and I just stored it. I stored it. And when it came up, I needed it. And there it was, and we had some phenomenal leadership, and that's why. And then I get back from Korea. I wanted to go to be a jump, Bassett, that doggone Bassett, man. I love him to death. But Bassett was a corporal when I left to Korea. He was a sergeant. He already had master wings. Tapia. So remember Tapia? That SOB too, man. I met him. He was a private. He was broke down at the PX in Smoke Bomb Hill. I had CQ that day. I drove up there. He had an old beat up Ford truck. And we had to give him a lift, man. He had his wife and his baby son there. And man, when I get back from Korea, he's an E5 and he's a freaking jump master. I said, what the hell? How long was I gone? I was only gone 12 months, man. That was amazing. And then when I wanted to go to jump master school, here comes Desert Storm. You know what I mean? So my enlistment, my 8 years there were kind of like out of whack and everything. I wanted to do so many things, but I was getting pulled over to different places. So I didn't get to, and then I didn't realize it was a bad move until I had already done 10 years in recruiting. I said, man, I should have, there's a what ifs. What if I would have stayed? Because I heard Lincoln got his CSM, and then Sanchez and all those, my whole peer group, they passed me, so, but it was, I love that whole time that I was in the 82nd, man. And I was going back every year. To go see Bassett. I go see Bassett for a few days, and play golf with him. And then I go down to Colonel O'Neill's place down in Tiga Cay, O'Neill, Perman, Reed. Spend time with them over there at the lakes, and then I come home, rest for a week, and I go up and spend time with Fuddy. And then until he got sick, I started going seeing him more often. I go up there since the pandemic hit. Before the pandemic hit, I was going up there to El Paso about 2 or 3 times a year, so I would definitely spend Christmas over there, 4th of July. Sometimes I'd go for Easter, but it's amazing how well he's been doing since that stuff hit him, but it devastated me too, because he was one of the strongest men that I know.
Right.
So,
Right. He had an effect on me, much like he had it on you. He was a mentor to me.
But that's the beauty of him. He always shared what he knew with everyone, with everyone. So, and that's what I loved about him so much.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Hey, one of these days I envision this tape that we're recording here to be used maybe for a service. And I would love it, if you don't mind, if I could get you to stand up when I tell you to, we talk about it. I want you to salute the camera and report. Give me your name and your rank and your hometown. And then I want you to, I would love it if you would call the battery to attention, and then both of us together say Cold Steel, prepared to move forward.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then after that, if you would just give me a hand salute and then sign out.
All right.
All right. So let's see if we can do that. It's all, it's on you. Go ahead. Oh, look at that shirt, man. Yeah, we got to back up some. Back up some. There we go. All right, there we go. There we go.
Do I call the battery to attention first?
No, you just go ahead and give me a salute and report and tell me your name and your hometown.
Sergeant First Class Mario A. Ramirez. Hometown, Progreso, Texas. Battery. Hot tit. Cold steel. Prepare to move forward. I love you, man.
I love you too, buddy.
All of this. All right.
Go ahead, give me a signing out. Give me a signing out.
Signing out, brother. Sergeant First Class.
Oh, that's perfect. That's great, man. All right, so we're gonna cut some of that stuff up and use some of, just use some of those snippets.
Edit it and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, you talked about
give me abs and stuff on there.
Do what now?
Make sure you. Can you give me abs?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll get it all shaped up. We got
All
we got that special software, Hey, so how about a message? You talked about your son. Talk to me about a family, maybe a message to your family, those that come after you might want to hear about your service. Is it something you recommend? Is it something you had a good experience with? Tell me about what you might tell your family or your loved ones about your time in service.
Well, one of the main things that I told my son is, I always want to set a good example for him. Okay. Nobody else can make it happen but me. Just like for your future, nobody's going to make it happen but you. All right. And you have to have the will and the desire to always put forth your best effort. I just want him to know that I always wanted to set the example, and everything that I did was for him. He was my son. He's my only son. I have 2 beautiful granddaughters. Okay. Build off of that, they're so adorable, man. It's unbelievable. I fell in love with them the very day that I met them.
Trying to do. So thanks so much for, spending some time with me. I really have enjoyed it,
Yeah. I enjoyed it too. I didn't think I was gonna be this doggone loquacious, you
Oh, I
know.
love it. No, it's wonderful. So is there a story maybe that you haven't told yet that you might want to tell?
Oh, there's just so many, you know. Uh, I have so many manly love affairs, and my first one was with, Rob, and like I said, I loved him so much because he didn't have to. Neither did Bassett, and neither did uh, uh, Stout. I hold those guys in so much high regard. Sergeant Sherrill, he doesn't understand how much of an impact he made on me. You know what I mean? Uh, I just appreciate all the chances, all the opportunities that I was offered, and I was I would be damned if I wasn't going to capitalize on them, because I had coaches and teachers that were not giving me that opportunity, that wouldn't. And I joined the Army, and they let me run with it. And I am so grateful for it. I have, I know teachers, administrators that are still in debt, student debt, and I have none. You know what I mean? And I'm so grateful to the Army for that, for this country for that, and I have nothing but love and admiration for everything that our country and our flag stands for, everything that people like you and Robert and I just can't say enough. Uh, even Cuddy, he wasn't he wasn't a he was a seasoned man, but he wasn't good with the words. You know what I mean? He wasn't very articulate, but he knew how to get his point across, you know? And I admired that so much from him, because even though he was very callous and abrasive, you could tell by the twinkle in his eye that he wanted nothing but positive stuff for you. And you could tell it in his tone. Ramirez, you're going to the board. Yes, for sergeant. Uh, he was when I told him, hey, I want to go to the board, and he had a battery one just to make sure, that I was, and I freaking wiped the floor with, I don't remember who it was, but I wiped the floor with him. And then I went to the battalion, and out of all the first sergeants, he was like, he had his doggone pipe and everything. He was like, oh shit, this guy's for real, and I just relish the effect that I had, because they underestimated me, um but I just loved that they gave me the opportunity, and I wasn't gonna let any of them down, whether they were a peer or one of my first line supervisors, or my platoon sergeant, or my first sergeant, all the way up. I wasn't gonna let him down, you know. Um, but I have so many stories, man. It's unbelievable. It's sports stories. Teddy Knight, Teddy I was one of my favorites, man. Oh man, and that's what I loved about the Army. We had the intramural sports. Man, I always wanted to be a quarterback, and I wasn't as good as Teddy, but Teddy would let me be quarterback too. And one time we had a game, and Teddy couldn't go. So I was the quarterback. And guess who was my favorite receiver? Lily. You remember Lily, the supply sergeant?
Yeah, big old
That big man, that guy, he had some wheels on him. As big as he was freaking fast. And so, Lily, what do you want? just throw it out there. I'll get it. And I'd go back and I'd throw it about 50 yards and he was right there. Because those guys, they didn't know I could throw, but I'd throw it and we ended up winning the game and stuff. Bullard was one of my favorites too. Bullard was awesome. He was the commo guy. You remember him? He was always awesome. Whenever I needed some commo stuff, he was right there and he knew everything like the back of his hand. Naylor was awesome. He was an awesome 63 Bravo. Sergeant Cadet, man, he was the epitome of the Iron Soldier and stuff. Man, that guy didn't. I don't think he had any sweat glands. You know, on the road,
Right.
on the road marches, man. On the road marches, I'd be dead, sweating. You know, that guy'd be walking around. Cuddy wouldn't sit down. He'd keep on moving. He'd start yelling at people and shit. And Cadet, he wouldn't sweat a bit. You know, it's just stories like that. Oh, I got a story. We were out on a field problem. It involves Cuddy. What was his last name anyway?
Kendrick.
First Sergeant Kendricks. We were out on a field problem, and for some reason, our section had to go up to the TOC, and well, they had us out set up tactically and everything, and the first sergeant was walking around, and the chaplain was there for the battalion chaplain was there, and he was in the Jeep, in the back of a Jeep, the commander's Jeep, and he was sitting back there with the map, looking at the map, wide open. And First Sergeant Kendrick saw that. Sir, give me that goddamn map. He freaking ripped it off his. This is a captain, okay? A chaplain. That was the funniest thing I ever seen, man. The funniest thing I'd ever seen. When I first got there, I don't know if you remember remember Sergeant Leon and Sergeant Brightell. Sergeant Leon, he was a character, man. He was Sergeant Brightell was my team chief, and it was one of my first field problems. Sergeant Morton was a section sergeant. We jumped in the night before, and as a matter of fact, I had a picture where I was with my M16. That was my very first jump into my very first field problem, and there were some special forces out there in the McGregor Range, man, going out there doing some training, escaping, evading stuff. And this one special forces instructor, I guess, ran across Leon, and Grinsell was his name. He was the gunner. As, hey, you see this guy? There's a special force. If you get a chance, you capture him. And here's our frequency. Here's the call sign, and give us a call. Well, Leon captured him. So he had his M16 and everything, and Grinsell was telling us a story that he was walking him towards the Jeep, and this special forces guy did some kind of maneuver, knocked the M16 out of Leon's hands, and then gave him 3 chops, whack, whack, whack on the mouth. We could, man, we were telling that story every night, man. It was a different version every night. It was freaking hilarious. We could never live that one down. It was so freaking funny. It's unbelievable. So many stories and stuff. But those were. I really mean it when I say those were my best years. Was those 8 years that I spent in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I want to try to go back there this summer. Bassett still lives up there in Sanford, and I hope he can play golf. If not, he can watch me play golf. He lives on a golf course, the sucker, you know. So he lives on a nice golf course. But I'm hoping to be able to get out there like I used to, and I still want to spend more time with Rob, at least another 2 times a year and stuff. But as soon as I can, as I'm able to, I'm gonna go see Rob. I miss that man, you know, and Mama too. Mama is a great cook, I tell you what. So that's the only time I'm cheating, because right now I'm back on a diet. I gotta fit in my uniform, brother, and I'm doing all I eat is I don't eat any junk. I just eat chicken and broccoli. That's it. I have a slim fast for breakfast. Snacks are apples and literally no junk. If I want, I'll eat some raw walnuts or I'll eat some raw almonds and stuff. And I've since the end of February, I've lost 27 pounds. So I had to I had to start losing. I was getting stretch marks on my clothes, you know. So,
Oh my gosh. So,
yeah.
hey, Mario, it's great to chat with you. Thank you so much for this.